What does nobody tell you about depression? You lose yourself. You literally forget who you are. I know a common symptom of depression is losing interest in things you used to enjoy. But to me, it was more like I actually forgot who I was and what I liked and what sort of things made me happy. I used to be known as someone who was super into summer activities, beach days, being outside all summer, and basically trying to get as close to a surf lifestyle as possible. As my depression grew worse and worse, I literally forgot about these things and didn't even realize it until now. Over 3 years later, I'm finally on the right meds, and I keep finding things that I remember I used to be in love with and somehow forgot about. Even things that have been in my room or in my closet, surf magazines, beach bracelets, I'll look at now and realize it's been there the whole time, but in the pit of my depression, I didn't even see it. I just find it so weird because when I was at my lowest, I was just a completely different person, but I didn't realize it until after I came out of it.
It's kind of wild how depression can change your whole perspective. It's like you get so wrapped up in that darkness that you forget what made you happy. I had a similar moment when I found some old photos from a trip with friends. The laughter and fun felt so distant. Realizing that I didn't even recognize that person anymore was a wake-up call. It makes you appreciate the little things when you come back to yourself.
That honestly, nobody really cares. You say it on the internet and get praise for being such a good trooper. But in real life, once people know, they don't bother to support because they don't know how to help, how to bring it up, or just don't understand. At the end of the day, the world isn't going to take it as an excuse for anything, and you just have to swallow the pill of reality that you're the only one that can save your ass from total destruction, even though you're not going to be feeling up to it. Every day, do it anyways. That's what I've told myself, and that's how I'm still here. Edit. Holy crap, this got big. I promise to read all of them and respond as much as I can. Love goes to all of you.
Not everyone understands the struggles we go through. There are times when you feel alone, even in a crowd. I remember going through a tough patch, sharing it online and getting nice messages. But in reality, it was just me tackling my issues. It's tough to push through that every day. Still, you have to keep moving forward, even when it feels heavy. It's just part of the deal.
The lack of motivation I suffer on a regular basis gets put down to laziness by colleagues and family more often than not. This further enforces the self-defeating feelings I have about almost everything I try to do. Only a few people who have figured out I'm depressed rather than lazy know that I suffer with depression. For the most part, one hide behind the facade that I am lazy because at least then I can say I am capable of achieving, but choose not to rather than accept the reality, which is that I am not capable of achieving very much. How is a sufferer of depression supposed to achieve anything when they lack the emotional capacity to drive themselves to achieve?
It's tough when people misinterpret what you're going through. They see laziness but don't realize there's a deeper struggle. Hiding behind that facade makes it harder to seek help. It's a cycle where you feel inadequate, and that just feeds into the depression. It's like you want to do more but can't find the energy or motivation. Acknowledging the issue is the first step, but it's not an easy road to walk.
For some people, like me, medication really does work. And antidepressants don't destroy someone's personality or zap them of creativity. They allow many depressed people to function better on a basic level. I just wish people wouldn't criticize or mock antidepressants so much. Prozac seriously saved my life.
It's interesting how people have different experiences with medication. I know someone who was really struggling, but once they found the right antidepressant, things changed for them. They could finally take part in life again. It's a shame that there's so much stigma around it. Some people just don't get how impactful these meds can be for the right person. It's about finding what works for you.
You reach a point where you realize you are being absolutely ridiculous. That just makes everything worse. Also, big things are scary. Small things are easier. Going grocery shopping is something you need to do or you will starve to death. Going to see Star Wars is not actually going to change your life, so there is no pressure. This ties together in realizing that you are 30 years old, haven't left the house in 3 weeks except when your husband makes you, but you'll walk 3 miles to hatch a Pokemon egg. Embrace the absurd.
It's easy to find ourselves in that ridiculous space. Like last month, I noticed I hadn't stepped outside for a bit, and it felt odd. I was fine with my routine, but I couldn't say no to a game. I'd walk all that distance for a virtual egg but struggled to go to the store. Funny how priorities shift. Sometimes, we just need a little nudge from someone to get back into the real world.
How hard it is to get up and get help. I'm having trouble with this right now. I've been telling myself to go to the clinic. I don't have my own doctor, and I can't bring myself to do it. Does anybody have any advice for this, by the way? There's always something stopping me, calling myself weak if I go, too groggy to go, etc. I don't even know what to say to the doctor if I manage to get there.
It's tough to take that first step. I've been there too, feeling all sorts of things before going to the clinic. Honestly, sometimes just walking in and saying you need help is enough. It's okay to feel unsure. Just remind yourself that seeking help isn't weakness. We all need support sometimes, and taking action, even small, is a step forward. You're not alone in this.
Also, how isolating it can be. Did you ever read the fairy tale about the giant in winter? He's stuck in a cold, dark place. Meanwhile, all of these children around him are playing in a beautiful springtime garden, and they're happy. It feels like that. You just seem so out of place in the world sometimes. Edit. Forgot the comma.
I can relate to that feeling. Sometimes, it feels like you're watching everyone else enjoy life while you're just stuck in your own head. I had a time when I felt disconnected, like nothing really mattered. It's tough seeing others be happy and you're in a different world. You want to be part of that joy, but everything around just feels cold and distant. It's a heavy kind of loneliness.
You're not usually sad and crying all the time. Actually, when you do cry, it's a big relief. Depression is a lack of emotion. There's no happiness or sadness. You don't care about anything. You don't have any motivation. Depression is not always easy to recognize. For months you can go and not even realize there's anything wrong, and you'll wake up one day and all of a sudden realize the last months of your life you didn't care and didn't feel anything. It's not the person's fault. They're not weak, and it's not up to you to change your mindset and fix your depression. Depression is an illness, it's not an attitude.
I get what you're saying about depression. It's tough when you realize you've been going through life without really feeling much. I once had a friend who seemed fine, but one day he told me he felt numb for months. It hit me hard because I thought he was just quiet. It made me understand that sometimes, people hide their struggles really well. You just have to be there for them, you know?
We're tired of people just saying, "I'm here for you," or "You can talk to me about it." All that is easier said than done. I remember when Robin Williams died, people were posting on Facebook saying if anyone ever needs to talk, you can always come to me. The thing is, we know that there are people there, but none of it register. Certain things do not make sense when you're depressed. Plus, the last thing I want to do is become a charity case for someone. Like many have said, if you notice something off about someone, make an effort to actually be there instead of broadly saying, "I'm here if you need me."
It's true that the empty words often don't matter much. I had a friend who went through a rough time and the usual phrases just felt hollow. When I noticed he was off, I didn't just post online or text. I showed up with some food and we just sat together in silence. Sometimes, just being there is what counts. Those moments can mean more than words ever could.
The energy-sapping boredom, you end up being so bored with everything around you that you don't have the energy to try and keep yourself busy or occupy your mind, as well as the constant self-doubt and paranoia about how you have messed up relationships through little actions you feel have had a big consequence.
I get that feeling. There's this time when I just sat around for days staring at the walls. Everything felt pointless. I kept replaying old conversations, wondering if I said something wrong. It's weird how those small moments can haunt you. One little thing you did or said gets magnified in your mind. It's exhausting, and you end up just stuck in your own head, not knowing how to move forward.
Even though it's a very common illness/symptom, it's a very lonely one. Hard to get support from other people suffering depression because everyone experiences it differently. It's also hard to relate your depression to another person's. It's just hard sometimes, and you yourself are the only one who can help you.
I get that. I had a friend who went through something similar. He felt isolated, like no one understood what he was dealing with. We talked a lot, but it was tough for him to open up. Everyone's path is different, and it can be hard to connect on that level. Sometimes, just knowing someone is there to listen can make a difference, but it's really about finding your own way to cope.
A lot of people think that depressed people refuse to help themselves because they have a bad attitude, or that's the impression that I get from a lot of people anyway. The thing with depression is that it takes away that part of you that wants to try and get better. I don't care if you're the most motivated or disciplined person in the world, it doesn't count for anything when you feel like that.
It's true. A lot of folks don't get how depression works. They think it's just about willpower or attitude. I've seen this with a friend who seemed fine but felt completely lost inside. No matter how much we tried to get him to open up or seek help, he just couldn't. It's not about not wanting to get better, it's about being stuck where you can't reach out. It's a tough spot to be in.
I've had depression and anxiety for most of my life and have been in meds since I was 17. I'm almost 30. First of all, everyone experiences this differently, so this is just my view. My moods were peaks and valleys, with brief moments of success and feeling in control to contrast the self-hatred and sense of desolation that consumed the rest of the time. I wasn't continued to be a perfectionist and busybody, and I now realize I busied myself, so I couldn't feel how inadequate and shitty I felt. It took a lot of work to get out of that hole, and I was the one who did it. No one can really help you, and it gets worse before it gets better, because you have to feel and face everything you've been avoiding. For me, my meds are like glasses. They help me see more clearly and balance out the peaks and valleys. It's a chemical imbalance, and it will never go away or be cured naturally, and I'm fine with that. The best thing is just to be there for your friend. Let them know you like them just the way they are. That's all anyone really wants or needs.
It's tough dealing with those ups and downs. I get it. I've had times where I was lost in my own head, struggling to find a balance. It's like trying to climb out of a pit, and it's mostly on you to dig your way out. Meds can really help, like you said. Just being there for someone else, letting them know they're enough, can make a real difference too. We all need that support sometimes.
I experienced a few years of depression so bad that if I were able to go back in time 5 years before it started and explain to myself what it was going to be like, I would be unable to do so. That realization gave me an entirely new view on the sufferings that others experience. We all like to think we have an idea of what others are going through, but we don't. What helped me the most was just having people be with me as I was going through it, not getting hung up on trying to solve problems. Some people can unintentionally be aggressively unhelpful by trying to propose new solutions all the time. Having someone to sit with you for an hour, even if there was no conversation, was by far the most valuable thing for me, outside of actual medical treatment.
Sometimes, we think we understand what others are going through, but we really don't. I had a tough time with depression for a few years. If I could tell my past self what was coming, I probably wouldn't believe it. The best part of that experience was just having friends around me. They didn't try to fix things, they just sat with me. That made a big difference, even when there were no words shared.
It drains you physically as much as it does mentally and emotionally. Imagine feeling like you just finished a marathon. At all times of the day, eating, showering, sitting upright. Everything is difficult. Sleep is not restful. You can't enjoy anything like media or entertainment. At best you can hope for is to be distracted in vanity. Memory loss, spacing out loss of cognitive function, anything that can possibly be construed as you being a worthless piece of shit, is perceived as an objective part of reality. Trying to get anything done feels like you're a cripple trying to walk. Put simply, you're dead while alive.
It's tough when every little task feels overwhelming. I had a friend go through something similar, where just getting out of bed was an achievement. It's like living in a fog where nothing feels fulfilling. They tried to push through, but it was hard. I remember them saying they felt like they were just existing, not really living. It's hard to see someone struggle like that. You really start to appreciate the simple things once you're out of it.
But depression really puts the world into a crazy different perspective. At least I know that for my depression, I go out of my way to make other people feel happy because I don't want anyone else to experience some of the pain I feel throughout the day. Also, the things that make you smile really leave an impression in your mind. You tend to cherish those moments so carefully since it takes a lot to lift the clouds.
It's interesting how tough times can change your view on life. When I'm feeling down, I try to focus on making others happy. It feels good to know I can bring a little joy to someone else's day. Those small moments of happiness really stand out after facing challenges. It reminds me that even when things get heavy, there are still reasons to smile and appreciate the little things.
Depression lies. It tells you that you're no good, useless, a failure, guilty. It tells you things will always be this way, that they will never get better, that there is nothing you can do to help yourself, that it's hopeless and pointless. But these are all lies. Depression is a liar. The first step to beating it back is to force yourself to stop listening to those lies.
I had a friend who struggled with depression for a long time. It was tough seeing them go through it. They often believed all those negative thoughts that fed them. But over time, they started to challenge those lies. Small steps like talking to someone or doing simple activities began to help. It took time, but they slowly started to see that things could get better. Just taking it one day at a time.
That it never fully goes away. Sure, sometimes you get out of a funk and can ride the good wave for a while, but waves always break eventually. However, it becomes easier once you can pinpoint when you know your depression is coming back. That helps to stop it and turn it around before it gets a lot worse.
Yeah, I get that. It can be a cycle. You think you're fine, but then something hits, and it's like, here we go again. Figuring out the signs definitely helps. It's like having a map for when things start to go down. You can catch it early and take action. It's not easy, but recognizing those moments makes it a bit more manageable.
That you can have a good life, good job, friends, family, money, and still be depressed. Depression doesn't care. I know that I'm blessed, and I still wish that I could just fade away into nothing more days than not. I'm getting help. I want to be happy again. Oh, also, you can have moments of happiness too.
It's tough dealing with those feelings, even when life seems fine on the outside. I had a friend who looked like they had everything together, but inside, it was a different story. They were often down, despite the good job and supportive family. They started talking to someone, and that helped a bit. It's a reminder that you can still find moments of joy even when things are rough.
No one tells you how apathetic you get about everything. You can go for days without taking a shower just because the idea of actually getting out of bed and doing something good for yourself. The idea isn't there. It's forgetting to eat until you nearly pass out because there's no food in the fridge and you don't have the energy to cook or to go for takeout. It's letting dishes pile up until you can't stand it anymore and you can't use the sink, but you still can't bring yourself to do them. Skipping classes because getting out of bed is an insurmountable task. Avoiding friends because you don't want to leave your house. Sitting around for hours doing nothing and then hating yourself while everything piles up and crashes down around you. It's people calling you lazy, but really you're just empty.
I get it. I've been in that place where everything feels heavy. Some days, just getting out of bed feels like a full workout. You skip meals and let things stack up. Friends reach out, but you can't bring yourself to respond. It's that cycle of feeling stuck and empty. People don't see the struggle behind it, just the mess. It's tough to explain that this isn't just laziness. It's just a lot.
It's not that you're seeing the world negatively. It's that you're seeing things as they really are, and everyone else is fooling themselves about how great the world and life is. It's like everyone gets one set of rose-tinted glasses to last them for their whole life. One day, you lose your set or break them. Everyone else around you still has their rose-tinted glasses and can't take them off or lend them to you. And you're stuck listening to people who see the world as an amazing place full of opportunity, when you know the truth of life is that you work until you die and none of it matters.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like when you finally wake up and see things for how they really are. A friend of mine went through that. He used to be super optimistic, but then life hit him. He started noticing how superficial everyone's joy was. It's hard to talk about it when everyone around you is still in their bubble, pretending the world is perfect. You just feel isolated in your perspective.
Many don't realize that anger and emptiness, not just sadness, can be a big part of depression. It seems like either everything is muted, I don't really get truly excited or happy about much of anything anymore, or there's a constant seething anger under the surface that I feel I have no way to release. I'm angry about everything. It will start as being irritated about something minor, and snowball into being angry about something that happened 5 years ago. Then there is the constant exhaustion. Wanting to do the things I like to do, wanting to get out of my apartment, but having absolutely no energy. This is what it's like for me. Others' experiences may differ.
I get how that feels. Sometimes you just go through days where nothing excites you, and anger feels like it's always lurking. It can be tough when minor things set off old memories that fuel that anger. And the exhaustion, it's like you want to do stuff, but even thinking about it drains you. Everyone has their own story with this, but it's rough when it feels like you've lost the energy for life.
Rage can be a symptom of depression. You'll be going along mostly being okay, and then deep, sudden rage. It doesn't matter that the trigger is something small or never bothered you before. It's also really weird to recognize that X is happening because of the depression or anxiety, but you can't say anything about it.
I get that. It's strange how emotions can flip like a switch for no clear reason. You might be fine one moment, and then just snap. It's tough to connect those feelings with something deeper like depression. Sometimes you just feel trapped in that anger while knowing it's not really what you want to feel. It's hard to deal with when you can't pinpoint the cause. Just gotta ride it out.
Yup, have an anxiety disorder, and it triggers depression. I get so anxious I can't leave my place other than work, and then I get depressed because I am isolated. I have it under control now, with meds, and feel more alive than I have in years. I also have a super awesome social worker I talk with to help me out with my anxiety. It's the 2-for-1 deal where no one is a winner.
It's good to hear you're managing things better now. Anxiety can be tough to deal with, especially when it leads to isolation. Finding the right meds and support makes a big difference. Having a good social worker is key. They can really help you navigate those feelings. It sounds like you're on the right path, and it's nice to see that you're feeling more alive these days.
This is a huge one for me that I have never heard from anyone else. My trigger for recognizing when I am doing a shitty job of coping is when I start to feel dumb. When I can't concentrate, can't make basic connections, forget little things, or when trains of thought just fizzle out. And when it's bad, you get that fuzzy feeling in your head that makes you need to stay in bed because that is the only thing you're capable of.
I get that. There are times I feel like I'm just not functioning right. It's like everything just slows down or gets jumbled up in my head. Sometimes I just want to stay in bed, not deal with anything. It's weird how those moments can sneak up on you. Recognizing when you're not in a good spot is the first step, I guess. Just gotta take it easy when it happens.
The memory thing is so hard for me because I'm so used to being on top of everything. I never used to struggle to remember information, especially for classes. Now it's hell. I struggle to concentrate. I'm exhausted most of the time. It's very hard because it's taken away a huge part of who I thought I was.
It's tough when your mind isn't working like it used to. I have a friend who went through something similar. He always had a sharp memory, then suddenly couldn't remember simple things. It hit him hard. He felt lost and frustrated, like a part of him was gone. We helped him through it, reminding him that his worth isn't tied to his memory. It's just a phase, really.
This is pretty much why I carry a notebook everywhere with me and write everything down that I need to remember. I don't think it's quite so much a dumb feeling for me, more just an overwhelmingly apathetic absent-mindedness. I don't care enough to remember something, and I don't even really care that I don't care. But I still write it down anyway, cause some shit is important whether I care about it or not. It took me way too long to notice any sort of connection between the two, but it's there. The notebook helps loads though.
I get that. I used to forget little things all the time, like where I'd put my keys or what I needed to pick up at the store. Now, I keep a small notebook too. It's kinda like a safety net. I don't always feel like remembering stuff, but having it written down takes the pressure off. It's funny how just jotting things down makes life a bit easier, even if I'm not super invested in remembering.
I've had this in my worst of time. I also either ate too much, I think it was a mental thing to try to kill myself, but enjoy it while I did so, or I hardly ate. One really bad week, I hardly ate anything and would drink about a bottle of cola a day and nothing else. I had lost 20 pounds at the end of the week, and people were complimenting me, not realizing it was because I was just not eating.
It's tough to hear that. I get the struggle with food and how it connects to emotions. I've had friends who face similar situations, trying to cope in unhealthy ways. It's strange how others notice weight loss but miss the real issues behind it. Sometimes, it takes a moment of realization to understand what's going on. Just remember, it's okay to seek help when things get too heavy.
Yeah, that distraction thing is so relatable though my depression was caused by OCD. Before I found treatment that worked, I had to constantly keep myself distracted because if I stopped for even a moment, my head would fill up with all these bad thoughts and I'd just spiral out of control. I listened to podcasts before bed and mentally repeated what the hosts were saying so that I didn't generate any of my own thoughts.
It's interesting how distractions can be a coping mechanism. For a friend of mine, listening to music helped manage anxiety. Whenever things got overwhelming, she'd just play her favorite playlists to drown out the noise in her head. It was her way of keeping the bad thoughts at bay. Everyone has their approach, but finding what works is essential for dealing with those inner battles.
What I've also found is I get better at being depressed. It's been this way for like 15 years now, so I know how to cope. I can bottle it down for an afternoon, so I don't ruin someone's birthday party. I keep getting better and better at hiding it, so it doesn't spread to anyone I care about. What they don't realize is it's too tiring. It's physically exhausting for me to put on a face and get through the day like a normal person. I get home, and all I want to do is completely daze out until I get to sleep again.
That sounds tough. I get what you mean about learning to cope over time. There were days when I had to hide my feelings just to keep the peace in social situations. It becomes a routine, but it drains you. I remember coming home, feeling like a completely different person, just wanting to zone out and forget everything. It's a heavy weight to carry, and it's okay to feel tired from it.
The movie idea is actually amazing. I have a movie buddy. We watch literally any kind of movie from shitty kung fu to Guardians of the Galaxy and just enjoy each other's company without all the pressure of being in a social situation. It's probably kept me sane for the last 3 years. I highly doubt they realize this though.
That's pretty cool. Having a movie buddy makes it easy to unwind. It's nice to just kick back and watch whatever without any judgment. Those casual hangouts can really help balance things out, especially during tough times. Sometimes, it's the simple things that make a big difference, and it sounds like you've found a good routine there. They might not know how much it means, but it's great you have that connection.
If they're having trouble getting something done, offer to do it with them. For example, I just moved and need to go to the DMV to get a new license, and it kills me to even think about it. I tried yesterday and basically cried in my car for 10 minutes and went home. Then my friend offered to come with me to help me get it done, and it means the world. It can get frustrating because sometimes they might not want help, like going with might not be enough to push them to do things, but just let them know you're there for them whenever they're ready.
It's tough to tackle certain tasks alone. I remember when a friend was feeling overwhelmed with moving and needed to go to the DMV. They sat in their car, just feeling defeated. I offered to go with them, and it really helped lighten the load. Sometimes, just knowing someone is there makes a difference. You have to respect their pace, but being there matters when they're ready to take that step.
I was the opposite. Right before I got bad, I would obsessively shower like 4 times a day. I worked it down to 2, but it never went away until the second time I got depressed, where it became 1. Then after I recovered from that, I could actually skip a day and be relatively comfortable. Never neglected it though. I think it had something to do nothing felt good, but showering felt not bad.
That makes sense. It's interesting how certain routines can become a kind of coping mechanism. When everything else feels tough, something as simple as a shower can bring a bit of relief. It's wild how our minds work like that. Finding comfort in something consistent helps, especially during rough patches. Glad to hear it got better for you over time.
I avoided showering during my worst times. It wasn't apathy about my hygiene like a lot of people experience, but active avoidance because being in the shower meant being alone in my head. I used the internet, music, and books to try and get away from my own thoughts, but the shower was just so quiet.
I get that. There are times when silence feels heavy, and you just want to escape it. I remember a phase where I'd binge-watch shows instead of facing my thoughts. It was like the noise created a barrier. But sometimes, it's hard to hide from what's inside. Finding ways to cope can be tricky, and you just do what you can to keep the mind distracted.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.